Right, hello and welcome to Short and Sweet Revision, English Revision. Okay, today we're going to be focusing on, sorry that's our pictures, we are going to be focusing on seeing the 100% perfect girl one beautiful April morning.
Okay, and we're going to look at some of the key features of the story, and we'll be applying knowledge to an exam-style question, looking at Peel paragraphs.
Yeah, and we're going to try and do this as at speed. That's why we're called Short and Sweet. We're going to try and cram in all the revision that you could possibly need.
Well, we're aiming for 10 minutes.
10 minutes
for each recording,
yeah.
And we will. This is our first one, and we're going to be putting some more on as we do them.
So we'll do our best, and if you do want to give us any feedback, feel free.
Only if it's nice.
Yes. Okay, so let's get cracking with this one then. So, I'll hand you over to Miss.
Okay, the short story we're looking at today was written by Haruki Murakami, born in Kyoto, Japan, but grew up in Kobe. Now, I've got a little bit of information about him. He's inspired by a lot of American writers, and I noticed in this story he could almost be writing in the style of J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. There are 2 or 3 lines where it almost sounds as if it is Holden Caulfield from that novel speaking. My son's a big fan of this writer. He came home with the book 1984, which was based on this story, and he loved it. Okay, Miss, what should we move on to next?
Oh,
here?
yeah, I'll just add in that one of the key things that you obviously you can read through this by yourselves, but one of the key things you do need to remember is this influence from Western culture, and within the story you'll see lots of references.
Subway.
A Woody Allen film.
Yes,
lots of references to the Western culture.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Moving on from that. So. I'll just remind you that throughout this PowerPoint there'll be lots of different tasks that you can pause and do yourself. So there's some questions if you want to think about linking it to the context. Alright, so setting. This is quite important when you're thinking about the time, place and situation of the story.
Okay, now on the very first line we're told the season, we're told the month, it's April. This does change later in the story to winter, so think about why that has been done.
Yeah, and again, the setting links in a lot to characters, the different structure when we move from the first-person narrative into the fairy tale, the setting, and it can reflect emotions with the weather, the seasons. Okay, so really do try and link in this setting to the other aspects of the story.
Yeah, one thing about the time in this story, when I was doing this with my group, we actually did highlight every reference to time, and it seems to push the story forward as well, which is a clever literary device.
Yeah, and do think about those seasons and what they symbolize.
Well, spring, of course, a time of love.
Yeah, and winter, change, feeling maybe depressed a bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, so as well as setting, you need to think about the point of view. So this is the point of view of the person that's telling the story. Now, I think we've talked about this, Miss. It's quite difficult, this story, to think about this. So it begins with a first-person narrative, which means it starts in the first person saying, I walked past the 100% perfect girl.
Yes, okay? And this does change. The story, it's like a story of 2 halves, and I know we'll talk about the structure later, but it's the first person in the reality part of the story, if you like, and then it changes into the third person during the fairy tale or the fantasy part of the story. But we'll look at structure as well in a while.
Yeah, so you will need to think about point of view when you link into characterization and also into structure. You could be asked a question about why the writer has used this combination of first person and third person.
This is definitely a story that needs reading more than once.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, so moving on from that, we have character. So you need to think about characterization. This is how a character has been crafted and developed by the author. And these are the types of things you need to think about. Physical description, dialogue, which is speech, action, so what they're doing, and the direct comment from the author, so what they're saying about the character.
That's right, and that not in this story particularly, but you always have to think of how other characters are towards a particular character, towards the main character.
Yeah.
So how they are perceived by others.
Yeah, and what is their role?
That's
I'm thinking about this in terms of this story where the boy and the girl, you need to think about their role. So are they a major or a minor character? And obviously we see that the boy starts off telling the story, and then when we move into the fairy tale aspects, it changes, and we change the age of the characters.
It does.
Their relationship, their relation to each other. So you need to think about this change and how they feature within the story.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. And also how they move the action along, because the girl, okay, we don't actually we have no idea how she's feeling. We don't see anything from her point of view, but she is a real sort of deciding factor in sort of the boys.
When she is supposed to have a thought or say something, it's actually him that is giving her those thoughts or giving her those words. So that's right, we don't hear it from her point of view. It's all his.
So that's another key thing. Remember, it is from his point of view. It's his fantasy. It's his thoughts and feelings and what he wants to see from her. Okay. Moving on from character, we've got some questions here. If you'd like to pause the PowerPoint, you can have a go at these, and there's some quotes. But we'll move on now. Okay, themes. Miss, I will let you take over the themes.
Okay, now I love this. I love looking at all the themes. And this writer includes a lot of these themes in most of his stories. And often, like it says on the PowerPoint, they are implied. They're not directly pointed out. Love. We've already mentioned love. There's the loneliness. And there is a line, I'm 32, he's growing older, and it does show his loneliness. And he does say at one point, lonely boy, lonely girl. Carpe diem, you might have heard this before. Some people say carpe diem.
Yeah, carpe diem. Yeah, Latin.
Latin, and it means seize the day. We should all do this. Take a chance. Go for things. When, do it. Don't hold back because you might regret it. A sense of loss for not doing those things that you wish you had done. And nostalgia. Particularly when it's the older characters in the stories. When you get older, you do look back with a bit of fondness, yet a bit of sadness, and it is nostalgic. Missed opportunity. We all have missed opportunities, and you go through life kind of thinking, I wish I'd done that, and
definitely.
What have I missed here? I've missed that opportunity. The author does use these in a lot of his stories, this kind of feeling of loss of love, detachment from love, and things like what could be or should have been but never was. Quite a key thing.
And we also need to remember that this story is actually based around one fleeting moment.
That's
and it's the reflection upon what he thought he could have said. And especially for my class now, when we talk about themes and what's implied, it means that you're reading between the lines. Okay?
That's right, and remember that insight into things that aren't actually written there. That's what's going to give you
it will not say in the story, this is about love.
No.
Okay, you need to read between the lines. What does it make you feel? What do you think the message is behind it?
That's right.
So moving on from themes, we have structure. Now, this is quite important, structure. Okay, so we're looking at the sequence of events. Does the story follow a traditional structure? Okay, and how does the structure relate to the meaning? So, Miss, we'll just have a look at this. Good
idea.
Yeah, this is your normal, typical story structure.
Now you call this your
story mountain.
Yes. Introduction. Most stories have an introduction, the rising action, something happens, a climax, and the denouement or the falling action, and something at the end where there's a resolution of some kind.
Yeah, and so we need to compare it, okay? So does this story fit the typical mold? And no, I don't think it does.
No, it doesn't. But it takes some time to see where the climax is, where what happens to change things. It does take quite a bit of time to see that.
Yeah, and you do have to really look back, because obviously we've got changes in time and place, haven't we, in this story? We've got a story within a story almost, when it switches between this fairy tale and the sort of the present moment. So you really need to try and figure out where is the climax, etc.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think at the bottom of page 20, is it, where the Once Upon a Time starts. At the bottom of page 20 in your anthology, that's the shift, that's the change, isn't it, from reality to the fantasy. So you might want to have a look at that change there.
And again, I think it's really important that the final line, you talked about this earlier, is where it flips back into the present moment.
Yes, it does.
And he says, yes, that's it, that is what I should have said to her.
Yes, and where he says at the end, a sad story, don't you think, is addressing the reader, and it's already been said earlier in the story.
Yeah, so this structure, this having this story within a story, this fairy tale, this sort of reflection on what he thought he should have said, really emphasises, I think, the feelings, the message behind it.
It's like a reality and a fantasy almost.
Okay. Sorry, I'm conscious of the time. I think we're dabbling on a bit.
To hurry.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and leave you with a exam-style question every video. Okay, and this is our question to you. What is the significance of the title?
Okay, and the second part is write about the ways Murakami uses structure and language to create his characters. Now, in our school, we use the Peel paragraph format.
Yeah.
If you don't understand that, I mean, we'll explain it now, but if you want to get in touch with us, we can explain that a little bit more to you. But it actually does work. Would you like to explain what that is?
So point, evidence, explain. So point is basically what you want to say. So I would always use the question to help you structure your sentence starters. So you can say the significance of the title is, and then whatever you want to say. And then your evidence would be
a quotation. Yes, used. And then you will explain why you have used that quotation.
Yeah, you really need to make sure that you use like sentence starters and links like this quotation shows, because it shows that you're reflecting on the evidence there.
I think a key thing, and I tell this to all my students, is you have to write about the how and the why. How has a writer constructed his story or her story, and why? Why has it been done? What does it tell us? What does it give us? What does it make us think about?
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and we're just gonna we're just gonna leave you with the C grade criteria. Oh, there we go. But yeah, that's our first revision video done.
Okay, well done.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Penn. And look out for the next one in the anthology. All right.
Okay, thank you for looking at this.